The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Now available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Hello and welcome to the Baggies Podcast, where of course we're giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. It's a bit of a milestone, another episode in the Baggies Podcast, but it's episode 30, and this marks a very special episode, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that in a minute. But today we're going to be talking about the Man City game. Yeah, I know, I don't want to do it either, but we're going to have to do it, I'm afraid. Then we're going to talk about the Fulham game, we're going to preview the Sheffield United game, and then we've got a very, very special guest, which is, of course, a bit of a milestone for the podcast. The first professional footballer to join the podcast and come and have a chat with me about his time at the Albion. It was great to sit down with Marc-Antoine Fortune, as I'm sure you'll have seen in the video title, about his time at the Albion. And of course, he's a great man, and it was great to chat to him about his time. And of course, I'm hoping that you're looking forward to hearing that later in the episode. We're then going to discuss all the latest transfer news, and of course, hear your thoughts about the recent events at the football club, transfer news, matches, whatever you guys have been involved. But if you're new around here, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're following the podcast, liking it, whatever you can do to support us, leaving us a review on Apple Podcast even. That would be even better. But we're going to be going straight into this episode, and also make sure you follow me on Twitter to keep up with all the latest updates on the Baggies Podcast at the Baggies Pod. You can even follow my Twitter at @LouisBent_. You can find that in the description. But without further ado, let's get straight into this episode of the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 30. Of course, some of you may be, if you're on YouTube, you're saying there's an elephant in the room, Louis. Something's new about you in this different environment that you're in. Actually, we got a nice bit of propaganda here for West Brom almost. Got plenty of signed players on the wall now in a little picture frame, and a nice scarf as well to go along with that. So hopefully something else to look at, really. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, stay where you are. Don't move. You're fine where you are, unless you want to go and see this background. But if so, we're on YouTube at the Baggies Podcast. Same place, same time, every Monday, of course. But firstly, let's get into the Man City game. I know, I don't want to do it. But in a very disappointing defeat for Albion, a 5-0 defeat to be quite specific. Yeah, not one that I want to particularly go into very much. But unfortunately, it just has to be done. I mean, just a disappointing defeat all round. The defending not good enough. I mean, Man City are a top side. They've got plenty of great players. They've got a lot of real creative flair and some really good play. But yeah, still, there's no excuse for having poor performances like that. I mean, just where do you start with that? They dominated the ball. I think we had a chance really early on in the game. You might have argued that we could have had a penalty from a handball. I think that was from Rodri in the penalty area. But Man City outclassed us. Not surprised by that, but they also outworked us. But I don't even think they had to get out of second gear for that. And neither did we. I don't think we tried hard enough at all with regards to the Man City game. I just think we just let that game pass us by. Plenty of passengers in that game, you know. And I mean, the whole back line were really passengers. Along with quite a few players in the starting lineup. There's not enough defensive cover for the back line. Sawyers and Livermore not really holding their heads up high with regards to that game. The wingers, I just feel we didn't play very well at all. Hopefully, we hope that we would get back to better things at Fulham, and we sort of did, but we'll be talking about that more in a minute. But yeah, Man City outclassed us really. They took the game to us. We didn't have a go at all. We weren't defensively resilient like we were in that 1-1 draw against Man City earlier on in the season. But yeah, we were just absolutely terrible. One of the poorest games I've seen from Albion in quite a while, actually. I know they're a good team, and I know that they play well and all, but still, 5-0. Sheffield United lost 1-0 to them yesterday. They put in a good performance, and they were unlucky to lose. However, we certainly weren't unlucky to lose, and we deserved a thumping with that sort of performance. Not good enough, and plenty of players needed to have a look at themselves and dust themselves down for the Fulham game. And that is exactly what we're going on to talk about now. I don't want to mull over that Man City defeat too much. Yeah, I feel that one's dead in the water a bit. We need to put that behind us, like Sam Allardyce did when he apparently shut everybody in the dressing room and really told some home truths about their performances. Let's talk about Fulham. So it was a complete night and day contrast between halves. I mean, the first half, we looked terrible. We didn't provide any effort. Fulham looked like they were going to score every time they went forward. Second half, we just went at them, and we had a much better performance. It was a real game of two halves, and that's from someone who doesn't like using those classic football terminology and whatnot. But yeah, a terrible performance in that first half against Fulham. They looked like they was going to score every time. There were so many gaps within the back line, and I'm talking about Gibbs and O'Shea. Twice Decordova-Reid got in and had a shot on goal. One time he hit the post, one time he scored. So fairly unlucky not to score twice from that situation. Samuel Allardyce bought off O'Shea, and that seemed to actually shore things up a little bit. It just meant that there were less gaps between the defence, because I don't think that five at the back works with those sorts of personnel. Gibbs just gets caught too far forward, gets caught ball watching, and the ball's in behind by that time. I hope Townsend's starting on Tuesday instead of Gibbs, because I think he's lost it at this level. Championship probably all right, but his fitness issues are just not on, and they're just not good enough at the moment for the football club. There was no belief in that side in the first half. I don't know what, you talked about the game before the game started, and you talked about how much this was a massive relegation 6-pointer. This was a huge game, must win. But then it was a wonder that we'd actually been told that, or we'd realised that, because I wouldn't have thought we had, considering that game. I wouldn't have thought that we'd had any belief or any resilience in our side, because we just weren't good enough, in my opinion. I just didn't think we played well enough at all. I thought we didn't start well enough. We didn't try hard enough in that first half. It was a wonder we knew the severity of the game, really. If we lost that game, we would have come out and we'd probably be out this relegation dogfight. I mean, we're falling out of it as we speak, but yeah, not quite out of it yet, but falling out of it. But we could have been completely out of it if we'd have played like that throughout the whole game. There's a real lack of poignancy in the Albion side in that first half. Just no getting forward, no trying at all. It was just a bit ridiculous the way we played. I just can't believe that Sam Allardyce hadn't, or the players, even, you could blame either, hadn't managed to motivate themselves for this game. Yeah, a difficult one to call, to be honest. I just wasn't really sure how to go about this game, because we just weren't, how we'd gone about this game, because that first half was just dismal. I couldn't actually believe what I was seeing in terms of Albion performance. But yeah, we subbed O'Shea off. We went to a 4 at the back. We started with a 5. The lineup was Johnston, Ajayi, Bartley, O'Shea, Furlong, Livermore, Gallagher, Gibbs, Pereira, Snodgrass, and Robinson. That was a 3 at the back with a 4 in midfield, and then probably a 3 up front with Pereira and Snodgrass just sticking behind. Robinson sort of more in that central role. But yeah, the lineup was quite good. I thought it was a decent lineup. Obviously, we had a new signing, Mbaye Diagne, who signed on loan from Galatasaray. If you want to see a video on him, there's one on the YouTube channel now. It's going to be popping up above my head at the moment, so you guys can go and watch that if you want to learn some more about him. I mean, you've seen him for 45 minutes. I'm going to talk a bit more about him later. But, of course, if you haven't seen much of him, my video is the place to go, really, with that one. But then we'll move on to talk about the second half, because obviously they had chances, Fulham, in that first half. They scored one. They were 1-0 up at half time, and it was really lucky that we were 1-0 up, because they were 1-0 up, because it could have been about 10. Well, 10's probably an exaggeration. It could have been 3 or 4 nil at half time, and that's a bit worrying. The fact that you're playing fellow relegation rivals Fulham, and you weren't able to keep them really at bay. But yeah, so we we didn't play well enough in that first half. It's fair to say. But the second half, we brought on a new signing, Mbaye Diagne. Grant came on for O'Shea in that first half, by the way. We brought on Mbaye Diagne, and I have to say he sort of changed the game. I don't know what it was, whether it was that new face coming into the side, that new sort of player coming in and showing that he's got that. He didn't even have to do much, but we looked lifted from the moment that he came on the pitch, and there was a bit of belief, which in that first half there was none. There was just belief. We went straight forward, and after 47 minutes, bit of luck with the deflected cross, but it came straight to Carl Bartley, who tapped home and scored. So we were 1-1 up. We were drawing 1-1 after only about 2 minutes of the second half, and I was like, what's happened here? And then we went on to score a fantastic ball in by new signing and by Diagne, who played it into Pereira, who poked it home. So that made it 2-1. Yeah, it took Fulham to the 75th minute to register a shot on target. So they were 75th minute in the second half. Sorry, they did register plenty in the first half, but that was like our performance in that first half. So it's a real game of two halves. We played very well in that second half. Diagne, I thought, changed the game. I don't know whether it was he's come on and, I don't know, maybe they've just looked at him and thought, wow, we got a new player, somebody to bring a bit of fresh ideas to the team. Whether it was that, or whether he just came on and we started to look and think, there's actually somebody to ping the ball to there. There's actually somebody who we can play the ball at. I mean, you could just have a large bloke from down the pub up there because he'd be a big guy and would hold the ball up. But Diagne, he just provided a bit more focal point, a presence almost, a big guy up front, which is something that we've needed. I mean, we just haven't been coping with under this Allardyce reign. When we're trying to pump the ball forward and the ball's just not sticking up there, you've got people like Grant and Robinson trying to hold it up, and it's just not their sort of job. I mean, he came on and made things difficult for the Fulham defence. You could tell that they sort of they cacked themselves when they came on because they were like, oh my God, we've had little Robinson to deal with all game, and now we've got this huge bloke to try and put. And that Fulham back line, not particularly physical. They got Aina, they got Anderson and Adarabioyo, and he, Diagne was causing the problems, and I think it was just that presence of that new signing coming onto the pitch, and he caused them problems. He just looked fantastic for me. I thought. And obviously getting an assist for that Pereira, that was a really good ball into the box and a few really good touches, which showed that the fact that he got in at 11 to the team hotel at 11 o'clock the day before kickoff, hadn't trained with the team, met the team just before the game, and came on and played a really good part in that win. It was a bit. He inspired the team to go forward. Now I'm not going to blow his trumpet too much. I suppose I probably already have, but it was more about his presence, and obviously getting that assist was just a cherry on the cake for him. But when he came on, I'm not going to, his performance wasn't amazing. He could have scored 10 and we'd be raving about him, but he got an assist and that was good enough, and it was a really good ball into the box. But the fact that you can expect that performance came after only spending probably a matter of 10 minutes with the team before the game and meeting them, and then just having to go out onto the pitch. The link-up play with people like Pereira was really good, passing the ball down, touching it down. And I think Pereira looked so much better in that second half. The first half, I didn't realise he was playing for most of it. But that second half, he came out, he caused the opposition issues, which was good because he was starting to drive that ball forward. He's finding so much space in the midfield area, in that midfield that was more, dominated in that first half by Ngisa and Mario Lamina. But he found the ball a lot, Pereira, in that second half. They just couldn't get the ball near him. And it was really good to see, actually. They just couldn't get near him in that second half, really, the midfielders. And I like that. I like that a lot. I thought we played really well in terms of that. I thought Pereira at the heart of everything we did, really. I thought Snodgrass played really well as well. And I'll just put that out there. You may not have noticed what he did, but he was doing a lot of tackling, a lot. When we were having a dominant spell, they were trying to counter-attack us. But Snodgrass was there every time. I think it was Lookman and Loftus-Cheek who were trying to break down the line every time, and Snodgrass was there making the tackle. Bartley played really well as well. Thought he had a really good shift. I just thought he played really, really well. I thought he just played the best game that he possibly could. And yeah, I think Gibbs. I think his time's probably about up. I don't think he's got it for the Premier League anymore. I think Gibbs is just probably over. Townsend needs to go in the team. Sawyer's being dropped from the side in this game. He had a difficult game against Man City. He was probably at blame for one of the goals, and has had a very difficult week. He suffered some terrible racial abuse online on social media, for which somebody has been arrested. 49-year-old man has been arrested. So it's disgraceful. You by all means, I criticise people on this podcast. I criticise Sawyer's, about his performances, but there's absolutely no need for that sort of behaviour. There's no place for it in this fan base, and whoever's done that, they're no fan of ours, considering our history and our sort of our connection with black players and what they've done for our club and being championed. Sawyer's, that abuse from him is not tolerated, and I do hope that they have the harshest effect on that person, and they can they're able to educate him on what's right and what's wrong, which in this case that was absolutely out of order. And you're all by all means able to criticise a player and criticise their performances, but there's no need for that. There's no place for it at our football club. Much better in that second half. We actually took the game to Fulham. The only thing about that second half is that we didn't actually go and seal out the win. We let Harrison Reed put in a really good ball and Cavaliero, but Gallagher hadn't tracked Cavaliero back and he managed to score, which was, I thought, God, here we go again. I thought it's just not what we needed. and we ended up giving the goal away and eventually giving those 3 points away because we had the 3 points in our grasp. I thought we would do really well to come back. Diagne being at the heart of that attacking movement. But yeah, it was terrible from Albion to give that goal away, and I was really disappointed to see that happen. Yeah, I just hope that we can get back to it on Tuesday night and hopefully take that second half performance and use it again, because I think that we need a bit more going forward. I think we need a bit more belief in the, right from the off. Sheffield United are not going to be pushovers this season anymore. They're not that team. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. Before we go into that Sheffield United, I must interrupt the podcast because we've actually got something new about this Baggies Podcast network almost. We have launched a brand new blog and article website, which you can read all the latest news. You can read all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. You can find that at thebaggiespodcast.wordpress.com. There's a match report from Fulham. There's player ratings. There's a piece on him by Diagne already. There's 3 pieces already for you to go and read. So if you're new around here or you just enjoy the podcast, make sure you go in and check it out. That's thebaggiespodcast.wordpress.com. The link will be in the description of the podcast, wherever you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or YouTube. It'll be there. So make sure you go and have a read of that. That's thebaggiespodcast.wordpress.com. Now it's time to move on to the Sheffield United game. Yeah, another must-win game, relegation 6-pointer. More so after a draw against Fulham and no 3 points with regards to that. But yeah, I thought we need to go out and put in a similar performance that we did against Fulham. I think we need to repeat that second half. Diagne, he's got to start for me. He's got to start. I don't know how fit he is. I mean, he only played 45 minutes and he looked fairly fit. He's sprinting, chasing the ball down, looks quick and strong. But yeah, not sure how fit he is. I'm not sure how up to speed he is. But we'll see about that when the time comes for the game against Sheffield. We'll see how people react to that and how people look ahead to that. So Sheffield are definitely a better side since we last played them. They were so poor up front that they couldn't even beat us, but they beat Man United in the week and they came close to getting a point against Man City. They deserved a lot from that game. Sheffield United, their defensive performance was absolutely second to none, and I think they deserved a lot more from that game. Yeah, they've been working hard. They've been getting wins. They've got 2 wins since they last met us. So yeah, they're going to be a different side to play, and it's going to be twice as difficult to try and get a win against them. I think we're just going to have to go and replicate that second half performance. You can't be pussyfooting around with that first half performance. It's just, in that first half, you can't be putting in a performance like that against a team. If you're against a better team like that aren't Fulham, they'll be 5-0 up by half time, and they were in a team like Man City. They were 3-0 up at half time, or 4 or something like that. I think they only scored 1 goal in that second half actually. So yeah, they were quite a few goals up by half time. So obviously, looking at that, you play a better team and they'll punish you. They will. They were 4-0 up at half time, City, and Sheffield United could take us for granted. They've got those finishing chances right. They've got things right now, and it's a must-win game for Albion. We have to go and win. Have to go and pick up 3 points. More so after that draw. I'm going to go with regards to predictions. I'm going to go for it's difficult. 1-0 Albion again. 1-0 Albion. We're going to score, and I think they're going to miss a few chances late on, and we're going to defend quite well late on. But we'll get a goal, and I think it's going to be Diagne to get the goal. Yeah, I can see it coming. Definitely. But yeah, that is my prediction for the Sheffield United game. Has to be 100%. Has to be a must-win game for Albion. However, now it's time to move on. And earlier this week, it's great to speak. Firstly, it's great to speak to former players, past and present, and all sorts of players who have played for the club and members of the club. However, this is our first professional footballer on the podcast. It's Marc-Antoine Fortune, and earlier this week I sat down for a virtual chat with him over Zoom about his time at the club. You guys sent in your questions, and here he is, me talking to Marc-Antoine Fortune. Thank you very much to him for coming on as well. It's a really big honour to have him on the podcast. But here's my interview with him. On this week's episode of the Baggies Podcast, we welcome former West Bromwich Albion player Marc-Antoine Fortune. Marc, how are you?
I'm good. You?
I'm very good, thank you. So you initially joined West Bromwich Albion on loan from Nancy in January 2009, initially on loan. So what were your thoughts when you first joined the club?
So it was a dream coming true, so I was really excited and I couldn't wait the first game.
Yeah, so you joined on loan, but then you scored your first goal on your debut against Middlesbrough in a 3-0 win. What was it like to score so early on in your Albion career?
So I was happy, but I was on loan, so I needed to prove. And scoring at your first game is always good for you and for the fans also, so they can see that you come here to bring something to the club and not only to be there.
Yeah, and you had your spell on loan first, from Nancy, but then you joined again afterwards. You came from Celtic. What attracted you to join West Bromwich Albion permanently?
Uh, First, the time I had there for 4 6 months when I was on loan. I really enjoyed my time there, and it was short. So for me, it wasn't a question when they came back to me when after I played for Celtic. So it was like coming back home. So I didn't hesitate a lot, and then I decided to come back.
And you played in that iconic 5-1 win against Wolves at the Molineux, which obviously many Albion fans will be able to remember that's a day that will live with them for the rest of their lives. You started up front next to Peter Odemwingie. What was it like to play in that game?
Oh, it was a great day for us. So, I play a lot of derby, and always trying to mark of a white stone this kind of game. So for the old firm, when I played for Celtic, I scored and we won. And people always remember you when you score for derby. And for me, it was really important to do well that day. Obviously, we won 5, so it was a great day.
And you also featured in a game which a lot of West Brom fans will also remember, which was a 5-5 draw against Manchester United, which was Sir Alex Ferguson's final game at West Bromwich at Man United, and it was at the Hawthorns. You came on as a substitute with 10 minutes to go. What was it like to play in that sort of game in such a momentous occasion for Man United fans and to almost spoil their party?
Well, it's always a special moment. Sir Alex Ferguson is a huge manager in the football, and to be there that day is also a part of the story, so the history. So I'm glad that I was there and I could go on the pitch. So I could witness Romelu hat-trick, and no, it was a good game to remember, and I'm glad to be part of it.
And when you played for West Brom, you obviously played for a few years for us. Who did you play with at West Brom in your team that you thought you enjoyed playing with and you thought was quite good?
That's a tough question. No, I like to say that I enjoy all my partners who I play with. So there was not really one in particularly. I always try to be a team player, and that means that all the player is needed. So I think it's the core of football.
Yeah, and when you played for West Brom, you won the Supporters Player of the Year in 2009 after your loan spell, and you played at West Brom for a few years. What sense did you get of the Albion fans? What did you think of them, and what sort of relationship did you have with the West Brom fans?
Oh, I was really surprised the first year when I heard that I was the player of the year for them, because as I say, it was short, but I think they understood that I give more than 100% when I'm on the pitch, and maybe that's the most important for them. And then after, I always kept a great relationship with them, even when I wasn't playing, or I was playing a bit bad, because we can't play all the time a good football. They always support me and back me up. So the last time I came back to receive a prize at the Autumn, they sing my song again. So I can only be respectful for the Albion's fan.
Uh, and in terms of your career, you've played for a number of different clubs. You played for Celtic, you played for Lille, you played for Wigan as well. What made West Bromwich Albion special for you? What made it that really good experience in your career?
I think is the start of my career in UK, so it can only be a special club for me. So because is that club who made me the person I will be after that. So it's really important for me to keep West Brom in my heart because I start there.
And when you obviously left it in 2013, you left West Bromwich Albion. When you left, how did you feel? Was it a sad moment to leave the club that you'd played for a few years then?
Of course, it's always sad because first of all, I didn't want to leave. I was really happy there, and with the Steve Clark, the relationship was really good. So it was a strange departure because even Steve didn't want me to leave, but the board decided to recruit other striker. Maybe my age, but I think the age doesn't count when the player is fit and can still deliver on the pitch. So yeah, I was sad. I can say I was really sad.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Mark. We're just going to move over to Twitter now, and obviously the listeners have been getting involved and obviously putting some questions to you. So this one is from Paul, and Paul says, Marc-Antoine, what was your favourite goal for West Bromwich Albion and why?
The favorite one. I would say against Wigan when equalized.
Yeah.
I think this one because I wasn't playing a lot for few games. I was on the bench or in the stand. So for me, it was a great time for me to show that it was a mistake to not play me. And it was a bad moment for West Brom because after that, Di Matteo been sacked.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this goal is important for me. I think this one.
And this one comes from Ethan. He says, you played with Romelu Lukaku. Did you believe that Romelu Lukaku would become the player that he has today?
Oh yeah, of course. People see him on the pitch, but they don't see him outside the pitch. Romelu and I, we have a special relation. So I was a bit the old man with the young player who's coming. So I tried to give him a lot of advice, and I could see the hunger he has. So I knew he would be that kind of player.
And the final question comes from James. He says, what you played under a few West Brom managers. Which one did you think taught you a lot about, how to play in the Premier League, and which manager almost was your favourite to work under?
It won't be a surprise. We say Tony Mowbray. So it's Tony Mowbray. He's the one who made me come in UK. So and then after he signed me with him in Celtic, and then after I saw him again, I played with him for Coventry. So
yeah,
Tony is one of the managers that I like.
Always Tony Mowbray having a special place in your heart. Well, thank you very much for doing this, Mark, and for coming onto the podcast. I'm sure all the listeners really appreciate your stories and your tales about being at West Brom. So thank you very much for coming on.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
So that was my interview with Marc-Antoine Fortune. Thank you to all those who got in touch and sent questions in, and thank you to Marc-Antoine for coming on the podcast. It was great to speak to him. One of my favourite players when I was watching the Albion. One of the first players that I would have seen at the Hawthorns when I went as a season ticket holder. So great to speak to Marc-Antoine Fortune and get some insights into his time at Albion. It's now time to move on to the latest transfer news. It's time to look at that thing we all dread here at Albion. Of course, he signed one player. We got one player in Baye Diagne, who I talked about earlier in the podcast, who managed to make an impact on his debut. Good signing from him on loan from Galatasaray on a 6-month loan with an option to buy. I think it's 4 million if we stay up, 6 million to buy if we stay up, and 4 million if we don't stay up. So that's going to be interesting to see how we get on with that one. Of course, staying up is looking ever less likely as soon as we don't beat those teams that we should be. However, another one that's coming in very soon could be coming in. OK Yokuslu. His loan is close to being announced, and medical and work permit are nearly finished, I'm hearing. So he's on loan. He's going to be coming on loan from Celta Vigo, Turkish international. If you want to find out more about him, he's up here in the video. Close to completion, I hear this deal is, but hopefully if you go and watch that video, you'll learn a lot more about him and what sort of player he is. I'd call him, he's up here, Claudio Jacob. Where is he? There he is. Claudio Jacob's up there. I'd say he's a bit like a taller Jacob who can pass and who can have that effect and keeping the ball moving. He's a defensive midfielder, but hopefully if you watch that video up in the corner, you'll be able to find a bit more about OK Yokuslu, because I believe he's got quite a lot of talent, and I believe he's going to be a good player, and we might have the option to buy him if we stay up as well. The next one is Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Now that's a strange one. Probably does prefer the higher club. You know, he probably would rather go to Leicester or Southampton, who are linked with him, who are interested. We're also interested. We want to play him in that midfield role. Apparently, Allardyce promises to play him there, and that's where he prefers to play. However, Arteta wants him to go to somewhere higher in the league. But it's pivotal to use that final domestic loan spot, because we've got one left. We've got one abroad loan spot. If we're going to use it on Yokuslu, that's fair enough. But we got one final domestic loan spot. Just use it. Anybody. They don't have to be great. I mean, they'll probably still break into our side the way it is. But if we just use that final domestic loan spot, then, you know, we could go out there and cause some upsets. Of course, when you're listening to this podcast, we might have already signed some of these players because it's coming out on deadline day. So hopefully you guys will know already who we signed, who we've not signed. So you'll be able to know. But those are the latest transfer rumours, and it's pivotal to use that final domestic loan spot, in my opinion. We just need to get somebody over the line. Benteke's been linked with us again. So we'll see how that one goes. But we've got three signings, if you like: Snodgrass, Andy Lonergan, and Baye Diagne. Time to hear what you guys think on the Baggies podcast. Time to hear your thoughts and what you've been saying about things that have been happening on the Albion. So you guys have been getting involved in all of your comments that you've been sending me on Twitter. Let's hear what you guys thought. So here we go with Ian Dickinson, who says that he thinks Gallagher's gone off the boil since Christmas. He said, he shouted at the TV, "Stay on your feet, man," as he took another tumble in the box. He says, "Grant, I'm sure he's a lovely person, always ready to assist OAPs with the shopping, etc., but doesn't cut it for me." I replied to this: "Gallagher frustrated me today, caught slacking for the second goal, and those tumbles were just a waste of opportunities. Grant, I thought, improved when Diagne came on. I've always said that he'll flourish better with someone to hold the ball up near him, and I think Diagne is that guy." So that was an opinion from Ian. I agree with him about Gallagher. He's since his suspension not looked too great. Let's see what Stuart Hicks says. Stuart Hicks says, "A fairly good first appearance, great assist, looks like he'll be a handful." Craig says, "Needs some minutes and some fitness, but he's got vision and we can put himself about a bit. We've missed the forward where the ball sticks. Still think we had to win both Fulham and Sheffield United to have a hope of getting out of this mess." I agree, but I believe that we can get a shock result along the way to equate for that loss of points. We've got lots of Galatasaray fans coming in as well on my YouTube video. I'm going to read a few of those comments out, because a few of them positive about Diagne, a few of them not so positive about Diagne. So let's see what he says. Right. Let's go and see what people have been saying about Diagne, because a lot of Galatasaray fans getting in touch. Great. If you're a Galatasaray fan, you're listening now. Thank you very much for joining. So somebody says, "Hello, I'm a Galatasaray fan. I've watched all the matches of Diagne in Galatasaray. To be honest, he's not a good player, but the weird thing about him is he can easily score. That's why he scored 50 plus goals in 62 matches in Turkish League. His pace is so bad, he can't link up, but he'll score. If West Brom have good wing players, he'll be successful, because he can't score on his own. He needs good wing players. Good luck to West Brom, and I hope he can stay in the Premier League." So thank you very much to Emre for getting involved there. It's great to hear his opinions on our new signing and by Dieng, obviously from somebody who's actually watched him for years. Bob Ross has said, this guy is a beast in the box. Premier League or Championship, doesn't matter. Definitely have to buy this score, and we did. So, yeah, other people saying Diagne is a goal machine. So there we go. People saying that Diagne is not great, but he scores. So, yeah. So let's hear. That's what the guys think about Diagne, and that's your thoughts on the Baggies podcast. That's what you guys have been saying about the recent events at the club. That brings us to the end of the Baggies podcast. It's episode 30. Thank you very much to Marc-Antoine Fortune for coming on the podcast. Honour to have you on, and hopefully the first of many professional footballers and members of the club that we're going to be seeing on the podcast. Got a few things in the works maybe, but hopefully we'll see about that. But thank you very much to Marc-Antoine for coming on the podcast. If you're new around here, make sure you're following, you're subscribing, you're liking the video, watching the latest YouTube videos because they come out during the week. If you're not subscribed to YouTube, I suggest you go and do so so you can keep up with all the stuff that I'm putting on there about new signings, my opinions on the transfer window. That's going to be coming out, a video I've got planned after deadline day about how our transfer window went. But there's plenty to go on, plenty to talk about. But make sure you go and follow me on Twitter at the Baggies Pod, or you can follow my Twitter if you want to speak to me. It's @LouisBent_ on Twitter, and the Baggies Pod on Twitter as well. So, and obviously the new website is out, the www.thebaggiespodcast.wordpress.com, where you can read all sorts of articles about the Albion. Link is in the description of the podcast. But that brings us to the end. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. It's been great to have you here. I'm Louis, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.